We've got week 0 coming up this weekend. And if you guys are OGs, you know that this guy was my co-host. We woke up early in the mornings, not really together. That was awkward. He's a married man. But we did wake up early in the morning and we were talking to each other for 3 hours a day and we never got sick of each other. We went to college together. That's how far back we go. And we are not going to be betting on Syracuse, even though he probably is going to say that they won't be as bad as our basketball team. So give it up for Big Ten Ben Stevens. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Ariel. Great to be with you. Yes, that was a lovely intro. Thank you for spelling it out very clearly to the audience that we did not wake up together in the same place, but virtually to host a morning show together.
Yeah, it would be a little bit awkward considering you are like married now and everything.
Indeed,
but
soon
times
to be,
of COVID, we were up early in the COVID times together.
Very, yes.
And listen, I rely on you all the time for college football stuff. I'm glad your schedule has now allowed a little bit of time for us here at the show. So Ben is going to be on Beeston throughout the football season, talking all things college football. We've got week 0 coming up, which I'm super pumped about. And we have a massive game for that noon game on Saturday in Ireland between Iowa State and K-State, which I should have been at, but whatever, that's besides the point. What are you thinking about this game? I mean, it's pretty important.
Overall, I'm incredibly excited because, Ariel, it's the first time in more than 20 years that we have a ranked versus ranked top 25 game from the very start during week 0. And I am sure that those that you are close with will be wearing their purple over across the pond in Dublin. But it is huge for Kansas State, and there's huge Big 12 implications from the very start. Both of these teams expected to be in that conference championship race. Both expected to contend for what feels like a very wide open Big 12 title once again in 2025. Is the Big 12 the best conference in college football? Probably not. I think that's for debate between the Big 10 and the SEC, and they certainly have debated all offseason long. But Ariel, I really do believe the Big 12 might be the most fun or highly competitive conference throughout the entirety of this year. There's 6 teams right now, separated by only $1 to win the conference championship before we get underway in week 0, and Iowa State just barely behind with the 7th best price to win the Big 12 title in 2025. So it's a very exciting week 0 opener over in Ireland.
This game should be filled with a ton of fans that apparently are from Iowa State, that Kelly said Iowa State is filling Ireland at the moment and they are not showing up, but we will see. And I was very excited because you gave me some props for week 0, and prop queen had to come on the show, give some props out. Why you liking this Avery Johnson over 47.5 rushing yards?
Back in the day, we would do something up top here and
shimmy
a shoulder. No doubt about it. So let's start with that over, right? Over 49.5, 50-plus points. Really, when you look at the Big 12 this season, so much veteran experience at the quarterback spot returning. I think we're going to see the old days of the Big 12, maybe not quite the 55-50 games that we had maybe in 2016 or 2015 with Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. But because you have those quarterbacks back, and for both of these teams, for the Clones, it's Rocco Becht. He was the 3rd leading passer last year in the Big 12. For K-State, it's Avery Johnson, who was slightly disappointing, at least based on those Heisman aspirations entering 2024 a year ago, but still incredibly solid, a dynamic athlete at that quarterback spot. You have great quarterbacks back. Both defenses struggling, at least based on a relative understanding of these two programs under Chris Kleiman in the Little Apple, under Matt Campbell there in Ames. I think we can get at least 50 points from the very start, relying on the quarterbacks and all that returns production-wise offensively as the defenses figure themselves out. And so in that similar vein, let's go to Avery Johnson. I said a dynamic athlete at the quarterback spot, over 47.5 rushing yards. Last year, he had the 2nd most rushing yards of any quarterback in the Big 12. So I look at Avery Johnson for K-State doing something similar against a Cyclones defense area that was absolutely awful last year defending the run. More than 188 yards per game allowed. The worst mark for Matt Campbell in Ames since his very first year there nearly a decade ago. And this is a team that often ranks in the top 25 in terms of defending the run. In the 7 full seasons in that span that I mentioned, Matt Campbell's very first year in Ames, Iowa, back in 2015, and now this past season in 2024, in those 7 full years, Iowa State had a top 25 rushing offense 5 of those 7 seasons. So very uncharacteristic for the Clones defensively a year ago. So I'll go with Avery Johnson over 47.5 rushing yards. You always got to be very careful when you bet on a quarterback collegiately in terms of his rushing yards prop. But Iowa State just 16 total sacks last year, only 21 total sacks in 2023. The sack yardage collegiately works against the QB's rushing yards number, not the same like it is in the NFL.
It's always hard the first week of a season because you're trying to figure out, okay, how much of last year's team is similar to this year's team? Is it going to be the same defense that we have to expose? But I feel like one sure bet a lot of the time for the first week of the year is rushing yards in many capacities, because at least you don't want to be throwing the football too much if you're not in that game day form yet. Does that have something to do with the early stages of the year?
Yeah, it's really interesting as well. And I think it's a good point that you bring up when you're trying to find, especially in today's current climate, what returning production looks like. How do you find that turnover year over year or the congruency year over year that gives you at least some sort of comfortability or familiarity with that roster and how things look? I think defense is a great place to start. So if your defense was good last year and you return a ton of that production, then you should at least have a stable footing entering a new season. When the defense was bad and there's still some gaps to fill, or even a lot of those guys back on a bad defense, you can expect year over year improvement. But when it's bad to start, maybe it takes them a few weeks to find their footing, and thus you can look to expose some of those similar trends that you had a season ago. I will say the props market in college football has gotten so much sharper now in 2025, even last year in 2024, than it was in 2022 or 2023. You could really find some pretty substantial edges. Not so much anymore. So you're going at the very start for a guy like Avery Johnson, who has proven 6 games last year, Ariel, with 10 plus carries on the ground in all 6 of those games. He had at least 10 attempts. He had at least 57 yards on the ground, averaged 74 per game, including in Farmageddon to end the season last year against that bad defense for Iowa State. So that's where I start trusting in Avery Johnson to utilize all of his dynamic tools that make him such a great athlete at the quarterback spot.
Shawn Michaels said, and he's always on the show, and that's definitely not what he looked like. Can we get a pick ATS for the K-State game since they can't bet college player props?
I would lean with the over because I understand, again, that you do not have those college player props, and not many places do, and they're further cracking down. I think the number is really solid where it is at 3. It's been up to 3.5. Could you have found a better number there on Iowa State? Because I think this game is decided by a single possession. If it's a single possession game, could we keep it under a field goal? Perhaps. I really do look right now where things stand for Kansas State with all of their returning production, with some consistency at the quarterback spot and expected improvement for Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards in the backfield as well, and a defense that wasn't terrible last year, allowing more than 23 points per game, but just not up to the standard we often see in Manhattan under Chris Klieman. I think Kansas State wins. I think it's a single possession game. The number of 3 in college football, not nearly as key as it is in the National Football League. So I guess then, Sean, if you're looking at it from that perspective, maybe K-State -3. But if you don't have player props, I'd bet the over of 49.5.
Kelly would be happy to hear that. She said it's either she wears K-State and doesn't bet the game, or she has to bet K-State, which we all know Kelly is not going to not bet that game. Like, that has to happen. And Alex, at least Ben knows about the dog situation here.
For sure.
He was very, very in the 3-hour window of dogs and my brother being homeschooled essentially during COVID. So he knows all the distractions, like my brother not waking up in time for class. So that was fun when he was in 7th grade. Now he's in college. That's how long ago that was, just to age you. Fresno State is taking on the other Kansas teams. So KU and Fresno State catching 13.5. Why are you taking the points?
So when you look at Kansas, a team that really should have some optimism, Jalen Daniels back once again, a quarterback that should have a high ceiling in Lawrence that has never really lived up to it after being the 2023 Big 12 preseason player of the year, was injured in 2023, wasn't great in 2024. And KU's season was absolutely wild. They got off to a 1-5 start. They won 4 of their next 5. They caused absolute mayhem and chaos to the Big 12, winning 3 consecutive games, booked as an underdog against BYU, Iowa State, and Colorado. That really changed the entire scope of the Big 12 championship race. And I think there is some reason to be high on the Jayhawks being around a 7 or 8 win football team this year. And really with how deep the Big 12 could be and how competitive the conference race is, as KU exemplified a season ago, they could be in it come early November. And I do think they win at home on Saturday against Fresno State. But when I look at the Bulldogs, there's a lot to like. They return a lot of talent defensively, especially in the backfield. And when you look at the new head coach there in Fresno, it's Matt Entz, who won 2 national championships as the head coach in Fargo for North Dakota State, and then kind of shocked everybody by taking a job last year as the linebackers coach at USC. He goes to the FBS level, works as an assistant, and then very quickly gets that promotion back to a head coach. He's a winner, and I trust what he will bring to this Fresno State program. And they've got a lot of experience on the offensive side of the ball. EJ Warner, familiar name. Kurt's son, who has a lot of starting experience at Temple and at Rice, takes over as the quarterback for Fresno State. I think Fresno State just keeps this game within 2 touchdowns. I know it's 13.5, but only 3 times for the Bulldogs booked as an underdog of 13-plus points in the last 6 years. Since 2018, they have covered in all 3 of those games, including against Michigan to start off last season, keeping that game under 3 touchdowns. So, Ariel, when I look at Fresno State, I think KU wins. KU could even win by double digits. I don't think they win by 2 touchdowns. I think Fresno State can keep it within a single possession or at least a 2-score game, a touchdown and a field goal.
G-Man34 made me laugh. He said key number in college football is 17.
True.
It's about right.
Yep.
No, especially these first few weeks of the season. It's like how many points is too many points, but 13.5 is actually kind of low in the first few weeks of the college football season.
True.
You've got a Hawaii play here for their receiver, receiving yard prop at 68.5. Why are we going to Hawaii?
I love this play, and I'm sorry for all those that do not have a college player prop option on whatever sports book they are betting on.
It's fine. They'll get over it.
Yeah, they'll be all right. Nick Senecal, the wide receiver for Hawaii, over 68.5. Stanford, Hawaii, the only thing is it should be at midnight Eastern, not 7:30 p.m. Eastern. But, hey, we'll start off the mainland and have some fun in week 0. When you look at Hawaii, a team under Timmy Chang that had won 5 games each of the last 2 seasons that I expect to be pretty good out there in Honolulu this year. And they had a freshman quarterback by the name of Michael Alejado that was sensational in the 2 starts that he made at the end of last year, including in that full career start that he had against New Mexico, final game of the year, 469 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, playing against a Stanford team now, both of those records, by the way, for a true freshman in his first career start. A Stanford defense that was atrocious, 4th worst in FBS a season ago in terms of passing yards allowed. And like I said, the prop numbers in college football so much sharper now than they once were. I thought maybe we'd get Alejado at around a 275.5, even a pretty substantial number for a college quarterback. Nope, it's already at 300, 298.5 basically. So instead of looking at his passing yards prop, expecting him to flirt with that number, let's go to his wide receivers. And one of his top targets, Nick Senecal, was back. He had 96 yards and a touchdown in that one true start that Alejado made at the end of last year against New Mexico. I expect him to be a top target for the Rainbow Warriors all year long. Let's see that in week 0 against the Stanford team, coached by Frank Reich, with the general manager in Andrew Luck. A lot to like on paper, and I believe they will chart a positive path in Palo Alto eventually, Ariel, but not to start. Very difficult schedule for Stanford. Hawaii is a favorite at home, which is kind of crazy just for Hawaii to be a favorite against a power conference team. But I do think because we will see some passing yardage, but the number on Alejado is a little bit high. Let's go to his top target, Nick Senecal.